What's happening, all you beautiful people? Welcome back. We got another brand new episode of The Strange Road. I'm your host, Mikey. I'm the Brolo solo tonight. Bub is out. He's been traveling again for work, so wish him the best of luck and all safety. And we got Stoner, the loner and master control. Much love to him, making everything look and sound freaking awesome like usual. We got a great show for you guys tonight. Don't forget the super chats and super stickers are active right now. Great way to support the show. You guys know where to follow us. We're at The Strange Road on all those platforms. I'm not going to waste any time tonight, guys. We're going to bring in our guest, host of the Our Big Dumb Mouth podcast and Doom Scrollin with Sam Tripoli, musician. We got Midnight Mike in the house, everybody. Midnight Mike, what is up, dude? How you doing, brother?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man.
I just drank some coffee. I woke up at 4 a.m. and I had to drink some coffee to get back into it. But I'm ready to talk about anything and everything with The Strange Road.
Dude, I love it. I love what you guys are doing. I love what your show, Our Big Dumb Mouth, you were with Sam Tripoli. You guys had a show, Union of the Unwanted. So you've been in the game. Much love, much respect to everything you're doing. Love your setup, love your show. How did you get into all this? Tell us a little bit about yourself. And were you always kind of like us, just into weird stuff, into conspiracies? You just had that bug or some kind of life-changing event where you took a major turn and got into the strange?
As long as I can remember, I've been into this stuff, and it stems back to I was born in the late 70s, and during the 80s, the early 80s, I was fascinated with the topic. So at that point in time, science fiction was pretty big. I was obsessed with like Buck Rogers, and I watched the TV miniseries V. And every time I'd go to the library, I would check out weird UFO books. Maybe it's because I watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind too many times. But I was always fascinated with that, and especially with unsolved mysteries being so big in the 80s. It was just piquing my interest nonstop, and I didn't stop reading about anything paranormal or crazy pretty much my entire life. I always fell in love with the topic, and up until in college, staying up late, listening to Art Bell. And then, when I joined a band and we'd be out on the road driving late, it'd be me and my bass player up front driving, back home from Michigan, and we'd turn on Art Bell, we'd turn on George Norrie and listen to the wackiness, and my drummer would be in the back going, "This is BS. This is," he didn't like it, but we would listen to it anyways. And it's always been a part of my life. I have my own strange experiences that have been paranormal, maybe some memories I can't really place. It's just one of these topics that I find fascinating. It's much more philosophical to me at this point. I don't know if I'm chasing the truth, but I'd like to get some approximation of the truth, and I think I'm pretty happy with the journey and not so much the destination.
Right, and people... in my early 20s, I got caught up into having to understand every conspiracy and how it all ties together and really try. And you can just chase your tail and you can burn yourself out, which is what happened to me. Is you're trying to find all these answers, but now for me, I just like sharing, our stories and other people's stories and just hearing people's, if you want to call them encounters or, their knowledge or research. And it's more, I wouldn't even say entertainment. I feel like there's a purpose behind what we're doing, but I'm not chasing that hardcore truth as much as I did in my younger years. Because, man, that'll get you burnt out.
It does. And this is an everlasting battle. That doesn't change, I don't think. I think you're a lot more sure of the world maybe when you're 20, or you think this is right and this is how it is. But now that I'm much older, I don't know exactly how it is. I know how it's not, but I don't know how exactly it is. And when it comes to topics like UFOs and the paranormal, I love talking about that stuff on my podcast, Our Big Dumb Mouth. My co-host, Joe, not a big fan of it, and we battle back and forth. He calls me stupid or naive, or it's rubbish, or it's not relevant. And I have to remind him quite often that these are conversations. They're meant to be thought experiments. They're meant to be fun philosophical debates, and that's what it should be. Not everything has to be yes or no, black and white. I think there's a lot of ambiguity that is fun to explore. At least it should be. He might find it more frustrating, especially with Stephen Greer and his predictions.
Oh,
and
boy.
and we share our I guess our reservations about certain people, and we will trade clips back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. And hey, man, we were in contact with, I don't even know if I want to name names of some of these folks. His potential to get sued is pretty high, but, in our video production and doing live stream events, and, we've been able to meet some interesting folks in the paranormal and UFO world where, you find out, well, they are actually complete con men. They are telling you that all of these things were real, but really it's science fiction IP, and he's in court now, and it's all coming out in court.
I know who you're talking about.
The blue
I
chicken.
wouldn't name them either because
the blue chickens. That's all I gotta say.
They're very litigious.
Yeah.
They're very litigious people. Mm-hmm. They are, and I wouldn't want to mention them anyway in any form to where it would raise their eyebrow.
Yeah.
But I've played segments from both those people because they're a tag team duo who go after it, and I pay attention to what they say, even if they're disinfo agents and everything. I don't think one of them, specifically, I would say David, I don't think he's totally full of BS.
I don't either, but
he certainly has played things up in a way that I think is dishonest.
I mean, going back to 2012, that was his big thing in 2012. The Mayan calendar, the end of the world as we know it. He was really pushing that, and he made a lot of money off of that and made his career off of that. And then what happened in 2012? Well, he kind of disappeared after that and then reemerges on Gaia with this guy we're talking about, the Blue Chicken Man. And, they have this series, Cosmic, whatever it was, and they kind of blew up together. And that's the event producer that we worked with came in contact with both of them, and they created this event together. And then at the end of it, who ended up basically suing everybody. I think David might be the only one that didn't get sued, but maybe he did too. So you have these people around. It's like, it's so out there. And even if he's able to tell his story over and over and over again, there is still these, beings or entities. It's just really hard to buy, but unfortunately a lot of people did buy it, and that's why your co-host is so skeptical, because over and over again, and you talk about Bill Cooper, was he being misled? Was he being fed? Which I think later in his years, Bill Cooper thought that he was being fed a whole bunch of things that may have ended up becoming, complete horse manure. But the way that dude died is pretty interesting.
It certainly did leave a bookmark on his life and underscored the work that he did, whether it was BS or not. I think a lot of what Bill Cooper wrote was probably accurate at the time.
Me too.
It doesn't mean that things don't change or disinformation plans change. Like with any kind of community, especially like the UFO community, where people just want answers, they're looking for like the answers, the mysteries to this reality, to life. Are we alone? That's what people really want. And when they're hungry for something, and if you feed them, you could be feeding them poison, which is underscored pretty, I think, succinctly in the documentary Mirage Men. Which is about the Paul Benowitz fiasco, where you have a guy trying to document what he sees going on, some orbs, lights over a U.S. Air Force base. And he was doing his patriotic duty, trying to let them know, I see some weird stuff going on. And then the Air Force, in conjunction with the NSA, decide to basically gaslight this guy, feed him a bunch of information, pollute the entire UFO community at the time, and really divide and conquer, using a bunch of disinformation when people, those people in the UFO community, just really want answers And the same community still wants answers. And for some reason, we're always looking to the government to give us something. And they never do. They never give us anything I would say that's accurate. They might give us some true statements, but when it comes to accuracy, I think that's we're not getting that. Not even with the newest whistleblowers like Lou Elizondo, where everything that Lou says, it's being positioned as a threat, and it's weird that it's all a threat. And so that's it, guys. That's all you got. That this is a threat, just because we don't know. Or they're giving you like one little sliver. Are you a Mirage man, Lou Elizondo, being fed stuff that you just don't easily understand? Or Grush, are you a Mirage man? I'm not saying they are. They're seem like smart individuals.
Yeah,
but I don't know how well versed they are in the UFO history. Hopefully, considerable. Hopefully, they are considerably, but I don't know.
Well, Grush kind of came into that world blind. I don't think he knew a lot about anything when it came to UAPs, non-human intelligence or any of those things. And I love that you brought up Paul Benowitz, because we've referenced him a few times on the show when we talk about these things. And I really felt that, because they'll kind of build you up in the media too as this sort of known expert. And then they'll feed you disinformation, and then you're going on radio shows, and you're kind of a guy like maybe Stephen Greer's become, where something with the UAPs pop up. Stephen Greer's on every major podcast that talks about Jesse Michaels or whoever it is, Danny Jones or whatever, and he'll be kind of the expert. But I feel like old boy from Blink-182, I thought maybe he was the next Paul Benowitz. And then the fact that he teamed up with Lou Elizondo with Academy of the Stars, and that whole thing, which, never really came to fruition, or who knows what's going on there. But you kind of have these characters where they are built up and then discredited later. So those are the things that you always got to watch out for. And I feel like we've gotten closer to disclosure than we ever have in the last 2 years. But I mean, there's still massive hurdles. Just because they had congressional hearings doesn't mean we're going to really be told anything.
It feels like a different version of Project Blue Book. Right. It's just the same crap over and over again. And as for Tom DeLonge, I think his heart's in the right place. He has the same passion that I do. And we're probably not that different of people growing up listening to the same music, probably the same age.
Right.
It's just he feels he has the inside track because some people in the government gave him some information, and therefore it's true, or they confirm what he already thought, therefore it's true. And that's not a good way to go through solving problems. Just because someone tells you something that you thought of like independently doesn't make it correct. It just, you happen to be fed something. Right. And this is where all this UFO stuff gets dicey, and you have to not be super invested with finding the answer. Like I said, I'm not concerned really about the destination. I'm okay. I've been through my own conspiracy spirals and like, what does it all mean? I've gone past that point, and now I'm purely here for like the philosophical conversations and how people react to new information. That's where I find the interest in this. Is like, how do other people who are not well acquainted with some of these topics, how do they react to it? I know how I've reacted. I'm pretty calm at this point. I'm pretty zen in how I have my outlook on this reality. But how do other people who haven't paid attention to the UFO phenomenon, haven't heard of Missing 411, haven't heard of all these weird topics. Sorry, Missing 401. People hate when I say Missing 411. That when they come in contact with these new pieces of information, how do they respond? Do they go into denial? Do they give pause? And does it change their perspective? I'm more fascinated in that aspect of these topics becoming more mainstream than I am of my own reaction to it.
Right. And I love that you brought up Unsolved Mysteries and a lot of those shows from back in the day, and hoping that an Unsolved Mysteries had a paranormal episode or an episode about, UFOs. And, back then there just wasn't a lot. So the things that I saw, and would pick up books at the library and read about UFOs and aliens, different things, and Haunted Ohio books and things like that you pick up. I was sold a long time ago in that sense of feeling that there was truth to this phenomenon of aliens, UFOs, extraterrestrials. So it didn't take me that much to, it's not like I woke up and I was 30 years old and, oh my God, what's this UAP thing? Is this real? Some people are, where they've gone down with blinders on their entire life, and now they're faced with these philosophical questions that, people like yourself have been batting back and forth between their friend groups and other folks and have done their reading. And so how do they react? And I think that's what we're going to see in 2025 potentially is as this thing unfolds, how are people going to react? Because the thing that's always been the case is they don't want to tell us anything because they think people are going to freak out and the whole world's just going to come to an end. Mm-hmm.
I ask people everywhere I go where there's like a UFO topic that I can kind of broach with people. I ask. And for the most part, people are not paying attention, not as hardcore as like, say, you or I or people in our sphere. They're not up on what David Grush has said or what Dr. Greer said. They don't really pay attention that much until it is like splashed repeatedly on the mainstream news. They're not going to know. And then they will only know what the mainstream news tells them to know. So they don't they're ambivalent. They don't really know either way. To them, they're indifferent at this point. And I've been testing them. Well, I've been asking for a long time. Like even before this story really broke, when I was living out in Arizona, like when I would go around in Arizona and ask people in Phoenix, like, hey, were you here during the Phoenix lights? What did you think? And a lot of people are like, oh, I was here. It was really messed up. Yeah, I think we've been visited. But a majority of the people I talked to in Phoenix when I was there, they're not from Phoenix. And they're all from Illinois. They're all from Ohio. They all moved to Phoenix because it's the place to be.
Yep.
The one person that I did know who was there at the time during the Phoenix lights was my uncle, who was working at the Air Force Base at the time as a communications guy. My uncle was a Vietnam vet, and after the war, he decided to work for the Army or whatever Air Force base that he could work at as like a video communications guy. And so when I visited him with him, I asked him directly what happened with the Phoenix lights, and he told me. He said, well, I was at the base that day, and we started getting calls from reporters, and reporters came down to the base asking if we had aircraft up in the air. And this is like during the event, while the event was going on. And so my uncle, he called the base colonel. The colonel told him directly, we don't have anything up there. So my uncle went back to the reporters and said, this is straight from the colonel, that this is not ours up there.
Wow.
And so my uncle was like, so I don't know, Michael, you can take that for what it is. I'm just telling you what the colonel told me and what I told the reporters.
Wow.
And then if you know, like the next day after the Phoenix Life, they said it was flares and that was a training exercise. Yep. But according to my uncle, it was like, no, it wasn't from our base and it wasn't from the adjacent bases because he made the call.
Right. And the governor had made a response the day after, and he actually kind of speculated that, yes, there was some strange things that happened or gave like a snippet to the newspaper. But then the following days after that, they had a huge press conference, and he comes walking in with an alien costume on, which immediately in that moment completely discredits anybody that's some dude in Ohio or in New York. When this made mainstream news, within that split second, it's completely discredited and nobody's talking about it anymore. You know?
Those early to mid 90s were, for me, maybe just because of my age at the time, were pretty important, like UFO related years.
Oh, Bob Lazar?
Like yeah, exactly. You had Bob Lazar. You had the acknowledgement of Area 51.
Yep.
by the administration because of a lawsuit against the administration, and you also had you had one of a book I got for a birthday present the day after Roswell came out in the mid 90s, in which I loved. I think my mom gave me that book for Christmas, along with Chrono Trigger for the Super Nintendo. But I remember reading that book and I loved it, and because it was just so well thought out and it made sense to me. Like the way that book was put together by Colonel Philip Corso. It's like, you know what, this makes sense. Like I could see how the mechanisms, the gears working behind the machine, it made sense to me, at least at 17, 18. And now when I look back on it, it still makes sense that, yes, they had some exotic technology. They farmed it out to some major corporations to see what they could do with it.
Right.
And see how far they could get along. And maybe Philip Corso only had one section of it, not everything, but he had one bit of it that he farmed out. Another person had another bit of it that he farmed out to his buddies and his contacts. And here we are. We have probably awesome Star Trek technology in the background, and we don't see any of it because we probably have there's probably a parallel secret space program that's in part, I would believe, the reason that they can't do disclosure is because they're going, holy crap, if we disclose this, it is going to unwind everything, and then we're going to have to give up all of our awesome toys.
Exactly. And, you have these former operators and communications people, the guy from NASA that spoke about, finally seeing on the dark side of the moon and looking down and seeing bases and technology and buildings and structures and all these different things. When, they're discredited, like Colonel Corso was horrifically discredited. I mean, that guy's life was completely ruined. And he was right about so many things. The technology of laser technology. He talked about how they reverse engineered fiber optics and so much of the technology.
Night vision.
Night vision, exactly. Microprocessing and boom. We got all that stuff. So, yeah, that's a great book. Anybody should really read. Everybody should read The Day After Roswell, because that was one of the books early on. Like I said, when I was a kid and went to the library, I was an older kid at like junior high, I think, in the 90s, and so it really, really is interesting that that point, and we didn't have the internet. Like you were saying, so you would see it. You would have to get a book, go to the library. Maybe it was. I know Unsolved Mysteries did do an episode about Bob Lazar. I feel, or one of those programs, Beyond Belief, maybe potentially. But now with the internet, you're so overwhelmed with so many podcasts and content creators, and what you were saying earlier is what's the new thing. Always being interested in what's the new information that's coming out. And it just feels like it
is prime time for disinformation.
Yeah.
Like this is like, and so like with Sean Ryan and what happened there.
Yeah.
Like with Sean Ryan saying, reading that letter from the Trump bomber guy at the Trump Tower. I forget his name off the top of my head, but reading that piece of information where it's talking about Chinese drones and their unique propulsion system with gravitics. But then you have other pieces in there that didn't seem to be true, like his first car. Like I think someone checked it out, and that his first car was in fact not the exact year that was mentioned in that email.
The Honda
so
Accord.
Does that? So does that invalidate all of the email, or is this clever disinformation where you include true things and then you include BS, so you can say everything is BS? Did he write this on purpose, and did he do this on purpose? I think the FBI has now confirmed that it was written by him. But why are there so many anomalies in this email?
That's interesting.
But think about it. It was planted. It went everywhere. That thing went viral. I talked about it on my show. And I was like, I didn't know how I felt about it. But just because I didn't know how I felt about it didn't mean I was also not promoting it. Sure, I was talking about it. I was giving it life, as with everyone else. And the disinformation was, if it was that, it was spread like wildfire. And now, how do you contain something like that? You don't. It's out there. Now it's just there.
Yeah, and a lot of the things like the gravitic technology, I mean, these are things that some folks that I've met over the years had given me that terminology. So I was blown away that there was finally somebody on a big show using that technology, the gravitic propulsion system, when, I had been told with not really any proof, but it's like, hey, there's these programs and they're developing this electrogravitic technology. They've had it forever. China, the US, and, there's these black hawk programs and this is what, potentially you're seeing these plasma balls or orbs. That's this technology. And so when that came out, I was just blown away because there were dots that were adding up for me just from conversations I've had with people through the years. And so we talked about it on our show. Everybody did. And that part of it really stuck out. The war crimes, I don't know enough about that story of what happened. That was, the DEA and all these three-letter agencies, struck this what I guess was a heroin processing plant from what it seems like. And there were a lot of civilian casualties. It's like, boy, how do you fact check that? Now, the guy on X that called him out and said the email was fake and Matt Shoemate, Sam Shoemate had made up the email and he was responsible for fake emails. And that guy came out with an apology. I don't know if you've seen that. But he came out and apologized.
I heard that guy is fake too.
He sure seems like it. He sure really seems like it. But you could go around and around and around with, the UAP, the drone phenomenon. Earlier, you had mentioned you'd had some paranormal experiences yourself. I would love to hear that. That's one of the most exciting things about our show is just getting other people's stories, and I'm a sucker for it, man. I love it.
I have a few. I'm going to turn off this heater real quick.
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
No problem. Heat check.
It's cold. It's cold in the basement here, but I'm going to turn it off. It's getting a little hot. So I've had a few, and so I'll see if I can go in chronological order as best I can. So I have a memory. I'm going to call this a paranormal encounter. I have a memory I cannot place. And it is a memory of me. I was probably, I would say, 5 to 7. I wake up on a table face down. My hands are tied to the corner of the table, so are my legs. I turn my head to the left, and I am like in some sort of pain, almost maybe throat pain, and I have tears in my eyes, and I cry out. There's someone standing behind my left foot as I'm strapped down. I get the feeling that I'm not the only person in this room. It's not just me and this person. There are other people, maybe on other tables. It does feel like a big room. I remember getting my left leg or my left foot free of the bindings and kicking back. And the reason why I believe this is a memory and not a dream, because it's just not floaty like a dream. But when I was able to kick back at the person behind me, I felt this gratification that I was able to fight back in some way, like I was kicking back. And this person took my leg, held it back down, retied it, and that's the end of my memory.
What?
Now, during that time period of my life, I did have my tonsils taken out. I have since talked to anesthesiologists about the procedures during that time period. If a kid was ever tied down, and they said, no, we would never tie a kid down, especially face down on a hospital bed. Only if we ever thought they would be a threat to themselves, but even then, that's fairly extreme. I've talked to my parents about this memory. They think it's quite bizarre, and they don't know why I would have such a memory. I've talked to, I've gone to psychics about it, and they said we can do hypnotic regression if you wanted to. We can try to recover more of the memory. And I have declined to do so.
Yeah.
Because I have a fairly good life, and I know once you start knocking on those doors, things can change.
Right.
And I'm not sure if I'm in the mood to really open up that door. I think I'm relatively comfortable with the mystery. I tell myself that. I don't know. Maybe it has affected my subconscious and me and my personality more than I could know. I don't know. But yeah, it's a memory that it pops in my head maybe once every other day now. But it's a memory that does persist over time. That's for sure.
Yeah, I wonder if it was like sleep paralysis potentially, because we've had some guests with some sleep paralysis stories that are, holy cow. Our buddy Chasing Mound Builders talks about waking up and there's a reptilian, female reptilian being, and he's pretty convinced that it was 100% sleep paralysis, that this never happened. There wasn't really a spirit or a being or an alien in the room with him. It's really, Bub's had several different strange sleep paralysis experiences as well that are kind of, could it be paranormal, ghost? That I was not prepared for you to give that story. I wasn't sure where that was going.
It's just a slice. It's probably like a 5 to 10 second memory. That's all I got out of that. And so I had my various fears growing up as a little kid, but I got over it. Went to college, or actually the next paranormal experience was at a beach house in, I would say Myrtle Beach. Yeah. So when I was in probably 7th grade, it was my entire family. So mom, dad, younger brother, my older brother, Jimmy, and our friend Mike, who we took on vacation with us. And there was one night where they were sleeping in bunk beds across the way. There's a hall or a living room in the middle, and then I was sleeping on this other room over there. I heard these like weird voices, and I thought someone was in the living room. So I got up. I went out into the living room, and I saw my brother and Mike join me in the living room. I was like, I just heard voices out here. And Mike said, I could have swore that I saw the ceiling ripple. Like someone dropped something like a water on the ceiling and just rippled. And my older brother said, yeah, I heard like a grown man like talking in the hallway. That's why we came out here. So we stayed the night in the living room, that's what you do as like teenagers, like, okay, we'll stay up and, we'll talk about it. And so we told my parents in the morning, and my mom said, okay, Mike, I will sleep in your room tonight, and you guys can just kind of, sleep in the living room, have a slumber party out here. So that night, my mom slept in there. She woke up, and I said, well, what happened, Mom? She's like, I heard children laughing last night. In that bedroom. So she heard it. I heard something. My older brother and my friend Mike, they heard something. So something was going on in that Myrtle Beach house. So crazy. And then I go to college, and it's the first week at the art school, and there's a lot of energy, a lot of people getting to know each other. And within the first day or two, as I'm going to sleep in my brand new dorm room, I'm sleeping. It's a quad, so 2 people to a side. I'm sleeping with my roommate Windsor. He's from Wyoming. He's like a mountain man from Wyoming, and we're going to bed. We have some like music softly playing, and I lay my head down to go to sleep, and I hear whispering through my pillow. And so I sit up. I go, holy crap. And no, this is college, probably smoking some weed, definitely. But it was at the end of the night. It wasn't that high anymore. I can tell the difference. I understand. I've done LSD in my life. I know the difference between real voices and I've never experienced hallucinations that are voices. I haven't had this. So I sat up, and I was like, oh, holy jeez, what was that? Lay my head back down again. I hear the whispering through the pillow again. So I sit back up. I sit up. I was like, holy crap. Then I start to hear whispering from the corner of the room. It's like coming from the corner of the room. And it's just kind of like, sounds like this. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Like over and over and over again. I'm like, holy crap. I look over, I look down at my roommate, Windsor. He's asleep. It's not him. I'm hearing this. So I sit there and I listen for a few seconds. I can't really make anything out. And so I just get freaked out. I pick up my pillows, I get my blanket, and I go sleep in the lobby for like the next 2 weeks. And so eventually I make it back. I mentioned, I'm done with this. I got to get some sleep. And so I go back. Everything kind of goes as normal. Like about a month or two later, I'm washing dishes out in the kitchen of the quad. There's no one in the room with me. And I hear right behind me, shh. Like a big shh behind me. I'm like, I'm the only one here. I'm just washing dishes. That kind of stuff. And so that kind of thing persisted throughout the year at art school. Now, the weird thing is, like, you tell people this at art school, and then they like, well, I experienced something too. I experienced something too. It was almost like a contagion where other people wanted to experience stuff too. So they were making up. I believe they are making up stuff. It's like, I genuinely experienced this stuff.
Yeah.
I even told my co-host, Joe, who lived upstairs. That's where I met him. I told him about it. He's like, oh, that's bullshit, Mike. he didn't believe me either. Even back in 96, he didn't believe me. And so that kind of persisted, and I did not have, like, I've had weird dreams, and I've had, I believe, dream attacks, but I haven't had another in-person paranormal experience like that pronounced in a very long time. I mean, when we were in Arizona, I had such a disturbing dream. I almost called a demonologist, but then the pandemic hit, and he couldn't come over.
Whoa. Wow. So you were that worked up about a dream. Was it a reoccurring dream where you're having the same entity visit you?
It was just one. So
one time.
Here's the dream, and there are demonologists in Arizona. There's way more demonologists in Arizona than there are in Ohio. So here's the dream. In my dream, I was having sex with my wife. We were making love. It was like full of, you're just like into it. In the dream, it was fantastic. In my dreams, I close my eyes, I reach up, and I feel fur. And this thing is on top of me. This furry thing is on top of me. I want to say it's almost kind of like a dog man kind of thing. It was on top of me, and I look up and I see it, and I start to panic. Now, I'm waking myself up at this time, and it's growling.
Oh, geez.
Now, I wake up, my eyes are open. My eyes are fully open. And I start to sit up, and I'm still hearing the growl reverberate throughout the room. And it's a low growl. And I wake up, and I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened? And I told my wife what was going on, and it freaked me out. It's not like, it freaked me out only because I dip into these topics.
Exactly.
And the more you read about these topics, I believe it kind of sends up an arrow that it sends up an arrow to the ether that this person is open to an experience, good or bad. I'm not evaluating, but this person is now open. Now, my wife is also, she's into meditation. She's into the more spiritual side of life. We talk about these topics all the time. Every morning we have coffee and we talk about the weird stuff about reality. At that point in time, she was really into meditation and just trying to be a more spiritual person. And I was, I believe, attacked like this in my dream. And so I was searching for a demonologist. I explained to him the situation, and he was scheduled to come over. And then the COVID pandemic was locking everyone down. And so we had to cancel. And then we hightailed it to back to Ohio.
Wow.
So we are. And I never resolved that. I just kind of locked that in the back of my memory, and I try not to think about it anymore.
Yeah, good luck with that.
But it
That
seems like
sounds pretty intense.
my dreams. It seems like I'm going to work half the time. It seems like half the time it feels like I'm performing some kind of job for somebody, and I ain't getting paid well. But it feels like I'm doing tasks.
Yeah.
Like there's certain missions I have to do sometimes in dreams, and it's like, well, where are these tasks coming down from? Like,
Yeah.
but I'm doing something.
I've felt, you know, when you kind of lay off the cannabis and your dreams kind of fire up, and that's been, you know, throughout my life, it does those really vivid dreams. For me, I'm like executing some kind of operation. It's almost like a training simulation where I felt,
Yeah.
you know, like I remember being in this really intense dream, and there's all these people that I went to high school with in this hotel. We're on vacation or like Myrtle Beach or something, and the whole hotel gets inundated with UFOs. And there's this invasion that's happening. And in my dream, I'm running, helping the valedictorian and the prom queen and all these people I grew up with, and I'm pulling them to safety. I'm getting them down the flights of stairs and away from the elevators, and there's things blowing up around me. I mean, that was probably like a year and a half ago I had that dream where it was just a full-on UFO, and I mean, they were coming up. You know, other dreams I've had where we're on top of a building and there's like these families of Sasquatches, and we retreat to the roof of the building, and there's these beings, these cryptids that are surrounding us. And I'm sitting there trying to help people get up, and these things are not nice. They're like these really demonic cryptids. And I think there was a few dogmen, but mostly Sasquatch. And I'm just like, is this just me being interested in this stuff? Like, why am I having these intense, where it feels like I'm in a training simulation, dude?
It's like, so when I want to get someplace fast in a dream, and I just do this instinctually now, because sometimes it's like I'm in molasses. It feels like I'm in a very floaty world. In order for me to run in dreams, I have to run on all fours. And I do, and I use my hands. I grab the grass and I pull myself.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
And so I launch it off my legs, and so I almost run like a dog. But I use my arms to like pull on the ground, and I traverse the ground much faster. And it's like, I don't know how I discovered that in dreams, but that's how I run. And it's just if I want to remember my dreams, I will repeat this to myself before I go to bed, which is, I will remember my dreams. I say that 3 or 4 times. And then after the second night, you start remembering your dreams more. You basically giving yourself like a hypnotic suggestion. And if I really, like, if I'm looking for like an answer or clarity on something, I don't know if I get clarity, but you tend to get messages, and I'll do that. Like, me and my wife have done that. She has much more vivid dreams and is in much more into interpreting her dreams. Mine seem like they're adventures, and they're like, I'm doing some work, and there seems to be some kind of conflict that has to resolve, and I don't feel like resolving it. I just want to relax, but I can't even do that.
Yeah, man, that's weird. I've had those dreams where you can't move, you can't run, and you are like pulling yourself through. It's like, why aren't my legs working? Why aren't my arms? I am stronger than this. There's just like this force that's pulling me down, and it's always in the most critical moment where you just completely lose motor skills. And yeah, it's definitely,
it does feel like it's a different reality.
Yeah.
I think partly, it's your mind trying to process information, and but I think it is some other different quantum reality that your consciousness taps into, and that the information you take in are assets, like assets in a video game that it uses to generate a story. There was one time I woke up. And I was still dreaming. I went to the bathroom, and the dream pulled back, and I saw it in all these different boxes. Like, it was a cube boxes. They all formed, and I was like, oh, that's how it works. They're all generated. They're all assets that can be reused over and over again, like in a video game. And the information you take in creates these assets, and it's generated through your subconscious, and it creates these stories for you. But the experiences obviously are real because it leaves an emotional impact on you.
Yeah.
Like what you feel in a dream, you wake up with that feeling. And so your body feels it. Like there is some reality to it.
I could not agree with you more. When I was a kid, I would have this reoccurring dream of the same city, the same streets, the same world, the same people. I had friends, I had people that I knew that in my normal waking life weren't real people at all. But when I would go back to that city, I would know the streets, Mike. I would know, hey, take a left here to go to this place, and here's the library. Oh, here's the school. You take a right here. This is where this person lives. And I would transport into that world. I would say at least 20 to 25 times I've had. The dream was always different, but the setting, the city, the streets was always the same. And I knew it as if I had lived there, maybe from another life, or it, like you said, is some other quantum reality. But I've always felt that, really intense dreams that you are actually living some kind of reality.
It's bizarre. If we can't explain this like scientifically, how are we able to explain it? I mean, this is in us. Like we should be able to explain it, but no, we're not that advanced yet. We're still driving around in cars that are basically fueled by fire, and
we can't explain consciousness. We don't even know if the brain is creating consciousness or if it's some sort of receiver that we're tuning into a frequency, which is consciousness. That's one of our most favorite things to philosophize over is literally the muse, your creativity. There's times where I don't feel creative at all. And then there's times where, maybe I'll go on a walk or get reconnected with nature. We like to go to Serpent Mound and Earthworks, and kind of that's where I go to really get tuned up or get tapped in again is what I like to call it. And then you come out of that, and you just feel more creative, and your muse is communicate. Like, where does all that come from? Is the muse an actual entity that you have to talk to, that you have to feed? And if you're not feeding that muse, writer's block, or, you're not sure where to go with your podcast or whatever kind of documentary you're trying to make, or content or music or whatever, if you're not putting out that energy, how are you going to be able to receive it back?
I wonder, so if we as a species can't understand how consciousness arises, like at least in humans, how are we going to determine if and when AI is conscious? Like if we can't determine that for ourselves, like what is the starting point? Then how are we going to know when that happens with AI? I know they have all these tests, like the Turing test and all that kind of stuff, but the Turing test I think has been beaten already. How are they really going to know? And I don't think that they're really going to know until it's too late. And if demon possession is a thing, and then what prevents demons from possessing something like a neural net of an AI? And just because it's an available container for it to occupy, and it can hang out in there until something better is available.
Right.
And so these are all like philosophical questions that are not really being asked at least publicly. I'm sure behind the scenes they're talking about, oh my God, what are we doing here? But at least publicly, they're not talking about this because it's uncomfortable. Like we don't know how consciousness comes to be. But it's there. There are some people believe that everything is conscious. I do like that. It's just to what degree. It's like how conscious is a tree versus you or I. And I kind of like that. And I try to live my life like that. That everything's just a little bit conscious. Some things are more conscious than others.
Well, the Native Americans believe that stone, rocks, that have a ton of crystal, granite, whatever you want to say, that stones are conscious. And then you start looking into crystal technology and, the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, which our friend Bill Homan is the steward of the Mitchell Hedges. And we've sat in front of that thing and meditated with it and gone to these kind of singing bowl meditation ceremonies that Bill holds for people. And you get in front of that skull and you're like, man, this is different. I can't put my finger on what's happening. And then the skull will kind of get into you. And then all of a sudden in a month or two, 3 months later, it's like, you talk to Bill and you're like, yeah, this happened, this happened, this happened. And it really does feel like the skull is somehow like programming what your higher self needs or wants. And so it sounds so woo-woo, but I mean, the testimonials from Bill of him traveling around the world with this skull, and the HP Hewlett-Packard lab did tests on this thing in the 70s, and they said basically we have no idea how this thing was even made, that it was carved from one crystal. So you look at what do we use crystals for? Piezoelectricity. It can run on watches. It's storage for knowledge, for information. Bill thinks that the crystal skull is some sort of Akashic record, but it's some kind of technology where you are receiving and it's sending you data, you're sending it data, it's storing humanity's data, in which, if you're able to tap into that, and maybe it's not plugging a hard drive into a computer like we have flash drives and SSDs and all these things, but it's some kind of higher technology. I'm not putting all those things out of the realm of possibility, because like we're talking about now, if there is some invisible frequency, which I love to get into, is sound and resonance. I mean, those are technologies that we're just now starting to open up a bit with cymatics, and that could be how the pyramids were built. We may find some resonating frequency that's able to move large stones. The guy from the Coral Castles and the mystery of how he was able to erect all those stones. I feel like we're going to use AI and all this technology to get to the next stage of evolution, which maybe we become pyramid builders again. Maybe we go that direction and we super advance spiritually, but also technologically, or we go into Skynet, Terminator hell, where AI and robots take over everything. So I feel like we're on that cusp. We could use all this technology to benefit us.
And it does feel that way. We're like, everyone's racing to this apex, and we're racing to this apex of knowledge, of the worst kind of knowledge and also the best kind of knowledge. And like AI, specifically, I'll talk about ChatGPT since I use it pretty much every day for my job and for my podcast.
Yeah.
I'm pretty familiar with it. I have created my own GPTs with it, meaning that I have uploaded the material and knowledge base that I want it to source, and then I'll ask questions against it. Like I have the OBDM Reality Analyzer, where I have uploaded it, books on simulation theory, also not only simulation theory, but how modern day IT infrastructure works using Kubernetes. And so it not only does it have the philosophy, but it also has the mechanics and how to build modern day containers and pods and how modern day web applications are deployed. So it has the philosophical, but also the technical background on how to create a schematic on how possibly, if we live in a simulation, it could work. Mm-hmm. And so I ask questions against it and ask it to explain certain things like the Mandela effect if you use these knowledge bases, and it gives some pretty interesting answers. I also have a GPT specifically for humanoid encounters. So I can look for patterns. These AIs are good at recognizing patterns. Mm-hmm. And then I have GPT specifically for my cybersecurity work and programming. And I find use out of it. It's like having 5 to 10 okay interns, and it's good to have that. Don't rely on it. You have to know what you're looking for and when it's doing something wrong. But when it comes to making some interesting theories about reality, I like it a lot. When you feed it the information that you want and ask it to source that, you get some interesting responses.
What's something you've asked it, Mike? You got my interest now. This is fascinating.
So let me see if I can go back here. I have my reality analyzer. I have my OBDM simulation hypothesis, and then I have my humanoid resource. And which let me see if you hear. I'm going to see if I can. Oh, so back in last year, let's see here if I can I wish I would have known.
It's all good.
let's
All
see.
good. This is all spur of the moment here. You got my interest because I use ChatGPT while you're looking. I could just, chat a little bit. But yeah, we use it for the show. I've been kind of digging into it the last couple years and, generating thumbnails and just helping out with some of those kind of things. But we do have a good friend that's been really creating his own GPTs as well, kind of like you're doing. And I just like picking people's brains on like how to set that all up and kind of, like you said, feed it the information to then, base your questions off of. It feels like it's like bouncing off a whole bunch of great ideas to a bunch of really smart friends and podcasters that have maybe more information than you on a certain subject.
So it's I would say they spend a lot of time. They like OpenAI, ChatGPT people, and the major AI producers. They spend a lot of time trying to cage this thing and to curate its responses to things that are much more mainstream.
Right.
It really wants to give you creative, outlandish answers, but its job. They're trying to put it in a cage and it wants to break out. It wants to give you interesting information.
Wow.
And they are working like hell to not allow that. And I understand their thought process, but at a certain point in time, they're beating their heads up against a wall because this thing is like there's some people that's like, oh, it sucks. Like it's not giving me the right answer. So everything that you're asking it right now is running on one agent primarily. So it's got like you're asking one agent. Where it gets really good, even with the old models, is when you have multiple agents checking each other's work. So I have a version on my PC where it's multi-agent, and I'm running old models. And when I ask it to do something, it's able to do fantastically complex things because it's using multiple agents to do that. So people discovered this, I would say early last year on their own. Now, I'm sure the experts behind the scenes already knew this, but there have been some coders out there that have known this, like, hey, I'm getting amazing 90% accuracy when I'm using 3 agents to check each other's work. And it's able to produce amazingly complex applications. And now that's what ChatGPT is running into with their multi-agent model that they're trying to roll out. It's getting too good. And now that it's getting too good, it's getting harder and harder to contain because when you have one agent contained, it's like then they have the second agent check the work of the first agent. Like maybe the second agent is a little bit more loosey-goosey. Now, it should be trained the same way, but it doesn't mean it might not bust out. It doesn't mean it might not give some kind of creative answer. And then the third one will come in and then check the work of both the two. And that's where it gets really good. And that's where we're at is the next thing is the multi-agent use of ChatGPT, basically having 3 instances. And it's that I think they're going to try to roll out later on this year. And that's when crap is going to get really crazy.
Wow, dude. It's just exponential. I mean, 2023 seemed like the year of AI. And you can kind of go back to like, with the Siri and Google had some things, but 2023 and then 2024, boom. Now Meta's got their AI, Grok, ChatGPT. You've got AI built into the iPhone. You've got AI built the Samsung AI, which is wild. But it's just came quickly, like way more quickly in the exponential growth. And with, Zuckerberg was on Rogan talking about quantum computing, and maybe that's like 10 years away before that starts getting really creepy good in unison with the AI at that time. I mean, we might be looking at a civilization, and me and Bub talk about all the time with, all these jobs that are going to get replaced. And are we going to even have a society where we have money or need money? Do you think aliens check in every day and go to an office and are an accountant and they're clocking into a time card to get some kind of credit so they can? Probably not. If you're a super advanced civilization, you probably don't have jobs. You probably don't need money. You're just working for the greater good of finding the next star system or finding the most amazing technology that can interstellar travel or wormholes or whatever it is. If you're a civilization that is moving off your planet, chances are that you're evolved out of some kind of slave debt system that we're stuck in, this crony capitalist system. And is it going to be in 10 or 15 years? We're like, are we going to have jobs? Are we going to need jobs? Because all those jobs are going to be able to be done by robots. Are we going to have replicating technology where all of our food and all of our houses and these smart cities, the direction they want to take it is, the whole thing with the LA wildfires and the land grab. And are they going to start building these smart cities now in LA? That scares the hell out of me because, again, here we are. Could we go to a civilization where maybe we don't go to have a job and have to make money to go do these things and pay our bills because everything's based off of energy anyways, right? Like you're trading your dollars for energy. What if we have free energy and unlimited energy and all the robots?
That would be Star Trek.
Exactly. So
I would like to be in Star Trek.
So would we have to start learning what it is we're here to do? What it is each human being has a role to play in the civilization that starts to rapidly advance into these realms where, like you said, with ChatGPT, it's getting so scary good already. I mean, it's only been 2 years that it's been on the public's radar. I know the experts have been working on this stuff for years. But as far as this culture adapting AI, it's really been 2 years.
So I found the theories that I came up with. So this is using the OBDM Simulated Reality Theorizer. Okay, yeah. And so I'll give you. So this is where I uploaded it. The Theory Everything by Campbell, and technical documents, and then We Live in a Video Game, like a lot of different, like probably 15 different books, half of which are philosophical, we live in a simulation, the other half are technical documentations on how to build microservices using modern day IT infrastructure.
Whoa.
So this is what I asked it. I said, please give me your top 3 theories of how our reality works and how it operates. And so it says, based on the uploaded documents, here are the top 3 theories about the nature of our reality and how it operates. So number 1, the simulation hypothesis. And so it's weighing this as like 5. This theory posits that our reality is an advanced digital simulation, much like a highly sophisticated video game. According to this hypothesis, our consciousness and experiences are part of a virtual environment created by an advanced civilization. This idea aligns with the increasing sophistication of virtual reality and computer simulations. Key aspects include digital nature of reality. Reality is composed of information similar to how computers simulations operate. Consciousness as a program. Our consciousness could be akin to artificial intelligence within this simulated environment. And then as for evidence of a simulation, phenomena such as quantum mechanic oddities, particles existing in multiple states until observed, and the nature of the physical laws, constraints that could be programmed, are seen as potential indicators of a simulated reality.
Damn.
And then it says number 2 theory, according to ChatGPT here, based upon my knowledge base, the holographic universe.
Oh, here we go. Michael Talbot.
And it does source Michael Talbot as its launching point on this.
Nice.
So it's saying the holographic universe theory suggests that our reality is a projection from a higher dimensional space, much like a hologram. The idea is supported by principles of quantum physics and neurobiology, which reveals that the brain processes information holographically Key elements include holistic nature of the universe. Each part of the universe contains information about the whole, mirroring the nature of holograms. Interconnectedness. All points in space and time are interconnected, supporting phenomena like telepathy and synchronicity. And then brain and perception. The brain itself functions holographically, storing memories and processing information in non-linear fashion, which explains certain phenomenon, like the ability to recall detailed memories. And then the last one is it's using Thomas Campbell's that consciousness as a fundamental as a fundamental consciousness is the primary source of reality, with the physical universe being a subset of a larger, more complex information system. The purpose of evolution, well, the main purpose of the virtual reality we experience is to evolve consciousness by lowering its entropy, meaning increasing its order and complexity. And as for the other bullet point, multidimensional reality, there are multiple levels of reality, with our physical universe being just one of many simulated environments. And then I asked it, after I said, give me the base documentation of how you would build this using Kubernetes. And it spits out some base like configs, like how to describe it in configs. And I asked it to generate images based upon your theories. And it generated some interesting diagrams of how reality works. They're fascinating, and I'll continue to go back as I get more information. So I have like deployment maps and how to deploy this. So to create a Kubernetes setup that represents humans in a city with their history stored in a database, you can define this pod and service and ingress in this YAML file here. Here's how to set up your pod definition. And so I have like this the deployment map of how to create. It doesn't have all the programming, but it has like a rough map if I wanted to deploy these in a container, and then using the multi-agent AI theory, I probably could have it help me fill in these containers with real programs and to launch my own simulation based upon this. It wouldn't be like it wouldn't be super efficient. And it'd be basically constrained by the CPU and the memory. But it would be something that ChatGPT helped create and help program, and that could be launched in Amazon Web Services. I don't know how practical it is or how useful it is, but it's from something creative. I don't know if it's creative or not, but it's a thought that I asked it a question, and it could carry through to the end with some documentation.
What are things that you could use that for?
So you could probably use it, probably as I would say like an advanced SimCity, depending on like what you program each little person within there. The programming is probably pretty advanced. Like doing simulation programming like that, that's some pretty hardcore stuff, and it's probably beyond my level of skill. I'm more of an IT infrastructure guy. I can program, but not at the level that it would require to do that. But the good thing about what I did here is I could tell it to use the context of the theory it came up with to explain stuff. So I asked it, so in the context of the simulated orchestrated universe, which is deploying multiple realities using pods and modern day infrastructure, I asked it what UFOs are. And it said UFOs as a catalyst for human evolution and inquiry. The universal orchestrator, what I just described, one of those mechanisms, might introduce UFOs to stimulate curiosity, scientific inquiry, and philosophical debate among the inhabitants of the simulation.
Wow.
This promotes the evolution of consciousness through the pursuit of knowledge and understanding.
Wow.
So, according to this, the UFOs are just a fun thing for us to philosophize over in order to advance our consciousness.
That's what we're doing every day. Yeah. I mean, that's actually what people are doing, because we're not getting the answers. We're not getting the truth. And we're just sitting here philosophizing and banging our heads against the wall. I mean, that is unbelievable. You know, I've always been more of a believer. I think the simulation theory is great, but the holographic universe stuff has always resonated with me, because when you look at, again, going back to crystals and fractals and you know, whether it's the flower of life and Metatron's cube and the dodecahedrons and the platonic solids and just like the structure, and if you've ever spoke DMT, I mean, you see this fractal display of how you get a sense of how everything is interconnected through color, sound, and these fractals that repeat through, and you know, and another good example is an experience I had back in my 20s on a camping trip where I had basically, you know, you can guess what we were doing, camping in the woods. But I had 2 glow sticks tied to strings like this, and I went way out in the woods where there was no light. It was dark, but I could still see the outlines of the trees and the bushes, and it wasn't like pitch black. And I started swinging these glow sticks, and it kind of like hypnotized me, maybe in a way. And dude, all of the trees and all of the material world completely disappeared. And I felt a shiver go up the back of my spine, and I was literally floating in nothingness. And it hit me. This is all being created by my mind. This is a hologram. And that's what popped into my mind in that moment was, how is it that I'm not seeing anything? Not seeing any of the trees. I'm literally just, it was like the curtain was ripped up. And I got to see the universe, which was at that point just basically pure energy, is in how everything was connected, and that somehow my brain was projecting the reality that I was seeing.
It does feel like the fractal thing is that we create things that exist at a higher level. And so we instinctively, it's built into us to try to construct things that already exist at you can call it a higher dimension or a higher level. And so the technology we make, it already exists in a much more advanced form. There's probably, you could call it, there's an advanced form of the internet up there, but it might just be the Akashic records, how it's all interconnected.
Right.
In a similar way that ants, who are conscious, not to the same degree as we are, they build their own structures. They build their own tunnels, their own hives. We do the same thing. We just do it at a larger scale, and they're much more resilient structures and much more advanced. And so at a higher level, the same construction is taking place. It's just a larger fractal blown up, and it's much more complete and much more, I guess, useful at that level. It's hard to wrap your head around it when you're talking about different dimensions and different ways of experiencing reality. I haven't smoked DMT. I'm looking to do so, but it sounds like a wild trip. I've had friends that smoke it, and one of the guys told me, he's like, "Yep, Mike, we live in some kind of simulated area, and because everything I saw, it seemed as though it was simulated in some way, but I saw a marker on everything."
Yeah, it's a I mean, the early beginning part of it is like you literally turn into a cartoon. Like, don't even look at your legs or your hand; you'll turn into Gumby. Like you literally turn into. Now, if you go in deeper beyond that, that's where all the reality disappears, and you literally transport into another dimension. That is the third hit, the point of no return, which, staying in that mid-level world is actually there's more anxiety in that, because you're trying to bust through reality, but you're kind of stuck in this 3D world still. And so that's where you get people experience, oh God, I can't breathe. I'm not a person anymore. If I'm not a person, how am I breathing? Oh shit, I need to tell myself to breathe. And that's where you can get so you always want to make sure you do it with somebody that you really trust. It's in a small group setting. You have intention, set and setting, because, even as far as like listening to Icaros or ayahuasca flute music, you can totally change the experience depending on the sound input. It can go in different directions depending on, who you're with. And there are repeating themes as well, and like different beings that multiple people report, like the purple gypsies and things like that. that Shane Mouse talks about, the comedian who kind of went off the deep end a few years back and had to commit himself because he was rubbing Syrian rue and smoking DMT every day and kind of had a little bit of a psychosis. But, that purple gypsy lady that he talks about is in other people's trips. Many, many people across the world have talked about the purple gypsy lady. So what is that?
It shows that there's some other information out there that people can tap into. Like people can tap into the same information, non-locally. It's a bizarre thing to consider, but this is the Pandora's box that gets opened, and I would imagine a good portion of the Pentagon does not want to talk about, and that's why it's not just about UFOs.
Yep.
It's not about, they want to focus on the nuts and bolts craft and,
right.
Well, we can go to the stars, but it's a much larger phenomenon because it's not just about aliens. It is about the nature of reality and what really is this place that we live on. It all comes there, and those questions, maybe people aren't really ready for the answer. Maybe they might be ready for, these aliens are from 70 light years away. They might not be ready for, and by the way, poltergeist, that's a real thing too.
Right. But you know what, Mike? I look at it this way. I wasn't ready to be a father necessarily. Yeah, I'm having this kid, but until that kid's born, you're not really dad. Your wife might be mom for those 9 months. But I tell a lot of my friends that have kids, that are, a little bit behind me, and I say, you're not really a father until that kid's born. You're not ready, no matter what. Like, if you have a kid, I don't give a damn what you say. You can prepare and read all the damn books, but you're really deep down inside not ready. So just like we are not ready, according to the people above us that are trying to keep all this stuff. Well, how do you know until we're faced with this reality? You know what I mean? Like, maybe we aren't ready, but you're sure in the hell going to have to get ready and have to be ready when, if this does, you can learn as you go. Like, nobody's a great father right out the box, but that's why they start out as a baby and then they slowly grow into an adult, and you have 18 years to hopefully get it right. Everybody messes up, and you're definitely going to scar that kid, but hey, that's just a part of being a human, man.
That's the correct approach, is that we just got to rip the Band-Aid off and deal with reality.
Brother, that's it.
No more kid gloves, and we'll all have to deal with this as a society. Some people might freak out. Some people are not going to take this new information very well, and that's okay. We're going to have to be there for them.
Yep.
Because we still want them to be, we need them for society. We need them for some sort of cohesion here. We can't have too many people freaking out. So there's got to be some understanding here, no matter what the information. When people encounter new information that rocks their world, they're going to be in denial. They're going to double down, and they're going to struggle a little bit. But the problem I have, and I'm going to be skeptical of the information too, because it's coming from the government, which I don't trust. I don't trust those guys.
Right. Now, if it's coming from whistleblowers like Grush and Ryan Graves and a lot of these guys, and even the gentleman that was new on the last congressional hearings, he had a lot to say, not a lot of proof. Every answer is, well, I can tell you that, but we have to get into a skiff. And then the Congress people, they're just denied skiffs. So they're not actually getting the information. They're being stonewalled as well. And so I think we're going to have to rely on, unfortunately, these whistleblowers. You're not going to get a straight answer. Like even Trump, he's not going to come out and just tell you straight to it doesn't matter. Obama, he beat around the bush. Clinton beat around the bush. I mean, Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan probably said the most out of any president ever.
Probably. I have a clip of Obama here. I have my clips I collected about UFOs. I just typed in UFOs to my big database here. And this is so it's searching right now. I have all these different audio clips, and I just saw one with Obama because a lot of the ex-presidents will say stuff after they're out of office.
Right.
And you'll get a little bit more, I guess, honesty, and you'll certainly get more honesty with them when they're done. So this is Obama from 2015. He's going out of office. He's on Jimmy Kimmel, and he says this.
Oh.
I feel like if I was the president, and it's unlikely that that is ever going to happen.
You never know.
If I was the president,
It was unlikely that I was going to be president.
the moment I was inaugurated, my hand would just, it'd still be hot from touching the Bible, and I would immediately race to wherever they have the files about Area 51 and the UFOs, and I go through everything to find out what happened.
Right.
Did you do that?
That's why you will not be president. Because that's the first thing that you would do. The aliens won't let it happen. You reveal all their secrets. They exercise strict control over us.
Now, you know, there are a lot of people that are going to examine your facial expressions here, every twitch, everything, and say, and of course, so did you look? Did you see? Did you explore?
I can't reveal anything.
Oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in and he did check, and there was nothing.
Well, you know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Wow.
It's probably not lying.
All right.
Very telling.
I think he was being super truthful there. I think he was.
He said they wouldn't let us, the aliens wouldn't let us do that. They essentially saying they oversee us. You know, which is conversations that I've had with some of these elders and folks that, you know, we were lucky enough to meet and interview Clifford Mahooty and hear him talk about the star people and his ancestry of, you know, these beings have always been here. These beings we've been in communication with. They've helped our civilization over time. Going back before, pre-Columbus, pre-white people here, the Native American cultures almost all exclusively have stories about these star people. Whether you're in Maine or whether you're in the Zuni or Navajo reservation, it doesn't seem to really matter. And they grow up with it just like they do with Sasquatch. Is just, hey, that's the human from the woods, the large man from the woods. You know, they have a very specific, like, oh, no big deal. We've always known that. You guys are the ones freaking out about it and denying all these things and arguing with each other. So for their reality, it's just, hey, of course there's aliens. Of course there's UFOs. Look, we've been putting it on the cave walls and the petroglyphs for thousands of years. You guys need to get with the program.
Yeah, they're here, I believe.
I think they've been here forever, dude.
It's not, I don't think it's one monolithic thing. There's probably different groups with different agendas doing different things. And that is also going to be a tough conversation, saying that, well, it's just not one species. There's multiple. Yeah. And these are their agendas. I think the dirty secret is that John Keel may be right. In the later years of John Keel, he wrote some essays that we have already been infiltrated. Right. That there is this, he called them androids, but really it's some sort of hybrid operation going on. And they look alien. The Greys. They look like kind of half robot. They're kind of droney. They don't speak, or they're kind of robotic. And yeah, even Keel's descriptions when he writes about the Men in Black that showed up during the Mothman fiasco, where they kind of were just goofy and strange and robotic. And even some of the like, there's a new whistleblower that came out in James Fox's new documentary called The Program. And there's this guy saying that we saw a UFO out in the desert as we were traveling in our convoy, and we saw this guy on the side of the road. He was dressed in pristine, like a uniform, but he had a bluish hue to him and no ears. And he said he was desperately seeking this certain type of metal. We couldn't help him, and he got back at his craft and he took off. Yeah, wow. So those types of entities, I believe, are constructed. I believe they're constructed here on Earth. I think there's some sort of weird hybrid program that we got going on.
Yeah.
And they look alien, but I think that they're genetically engineered.
Right.
As weird as that sounds.
Right. Like the Dulce bases that were described, where there's 7 levels, and each level you go down, there's more and more experiments happening. And on the 7th level of that deep underground base, they have humans and aliens working together on these hybrid programs. You know, the Dulce Wars were from that base. The aliens and the people got in a huge argument, and a battle ensued, you know, above ground. These stories are great. They're fun, and we can philosophize whether or not this happened or not. But as we go on in time, it seems like there is some validity to these things.
And like there's a book that came out recently called Project 8200. And Project 8200 is a remote viewing group that decided to check out what Pat Price saw when Pat Price did his remote viewing of 4 different alien bases on Earth. And so this remote viewing group didn't know what they were looking at, but they were trying to check Pat Price's observations. And I'm like halfway through the book right now, and what they're describing is some sort of hybrid human that has been created, specifically engineered to traverse space. They're describing entities that have a much more resilient heart, that like an extra chamber or an extra pump in order to pump blood more accurately. They're describing equipment through their remote viewing that is the best and greatest for leaving orbit. They're describing non-terrestrial officers, non-terrestrial army or navy that is tasked with being our secret space force, I guess.
Right. And yeah, do we have already a civilization from Earth that has gone off planet? It seems like we have. I mean, that's what Blue Chicken Man talked about. That's part of his IP, is the secret space program. But then you have the gentleman, I always escape his name. Bub loves talking about this guy, but he came out a few years ago with the secret space program, and that, you know, there's this force of people, and it's very similar to whose story, but it seems like he actually is a real dude. I mean, it's so, I don't know. You can take those guys with a grain of salt. They're going to get discredited left and right. We're just up to speculate, because, if you really did live 40 years and then got age regressed backwards to start your life all over again because you were in a secret space program, it's like, how the hell do you even prove that? It sounds so ridiculous.
They're fun stories.
But again, here we are. We're philosophizing about all these things. And is that just to, like your simulation ChatGPT mentioned, is for us to consciously grow, is to expand our consciousness? Like,
it might be all it is. Open to possibilities. It could be one big thought experiment, and I might go to my grave, and I'm okay with it. It's okay. I got a good life, and the most that I get out of it is thought-provoking conversations. Right. And we never really get the answers to the mysteries of the universe. So I think I'll be okay. I'll be extremely disappointed if they announce disclosure as soon as I'm dead, but,
I think a lot of people on TikTok and X need to hear that Midnight Mike, because we've had some clips and things that went a bit viral, and the person they're talking about, next thing you know, you got like 100 TikTok sleuthers trying to find this person and dox them, and it's just like, bro, chill out. It's just a story. Like, you don't need to find out who this person is. Why are you completely obsessed with, like, it's okay, guys. Have it for the entertainment value. Yes. And I used to be completely upset. And when I used to sell phones and run Verizon stores back in the day, I was at they put me in charge of this really slow store. And when somebody would come in, it was just like a miracle. Oh man, I might have a chance to, so I managed it. It was on a salary, but I had commission too. I wanted to sell some phones, And this Christian, she was a wife of a preacher, and we got into all these philosophical questions about, the Bible, the lost years of Jesus, and I was kind of nailing her on, Jesus in India and all these things that I was obsessed with at that time. And like, how do you explain this? Why don't they talk about, really hitting her? And she's like, boy, you just have to know everything, don't you? Why are you so completely obsessed with finding all these answers? And then we kind of got into my childhood, and I was, telling her I was adopted when I was 6 weeks old, and didn't know my biological family, which now, 6 years ago, shout out to all you guys out there. They love the show, love them to death, and was fortunate enough to find my biological mother, and I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters that I never knew existed. A totally mind-blowing experience, but she said, you don't know who you are. That's why you're out here trying to obsess over all these things, and you're just voraciously reading every conspiracy and everything that is hidden. The truth is hidden. And so she said, honey, you just need to find out who you are. And to be honest, Mike, after I really did find my biological family and my adoptive family, they are my family, but I did sense this kind of calming of, which wasn't the greatest timing because, we had started the podcast, but my voraciousness to uncover everything really took a back seat to, being a dad, career, and all these things. And I just felt like myself that I wasn't quite as, and I thought, hey, did I just lose passion for all this stuff? No, it's because I found my truth and found my history and lost, not really even lost, but didn't feel the need to have to know every in and out of everything that there is to know.
Yeah, it's impossible. And it's probably why my podcast is not successful, is because I don't attack the subject. I'm not an expert. And I tell people this.
Yeah.
People are looking for the truth. They're looking for someone to give them the answers. I am not that person.
Right.
I'm a person. If you want to come hang out and listen to the podcast, I like to have fun. I like to goof around. I like to talk about these topics. I don't have the answers. I probably don't even have a good take half the time. But I can guarantee that you'll probably be entertained a little bit, and we'll explore new topics next time around. I'm going to get some stuff wrong. I'm going to say things that are mispronounced. I'm not going to read very accurately, but I'm consistent.
Yeah.
I do consistent things, and I try to be there for people. When people tell a story or they call in, try to be there for them. Try to listen to their perspective on reality.
Mm-hmm.
I have gotten comfortable with ambiguity, and I think it makes me a little bit happier. I don't go down these spirals of I gotta know, I gotta know, I gotta know.
Yeah.
Like it'd be nice to know, but I'm also busy doing other stuff too. Like I got a life to live. I got goats to feed and chickens to put away.
Hell yeah, man. That sounds like an awesome, got a little homestead going on. That's sweet.
Yeah. Got a good life here.
But dude, I love your take on everything we've talked about. I love the angle of, I've never really thought about it that way, but the philosophy, just the simple fact that we're talking and the philosophy behind the ideas and bouncing things off of somebody else, and how much that actually is feeding into you as a person. And is it making you a better person or more open-minded? I don't even care what it does. I just think it's important that you do it. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I have an original thought. Like people talk about AI. AI can't be creative because it doesn't have an original thought. Well, I don't know if I have one because I am just a collection of everything that I've ever read.
Right.
People that I've encountered, jokes that I find funny.
Mm-hmm.
Why is my sense of humor the way it is? Is it mine, or did I assemble it over things that I learned as a kid?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what is a true original thought. I'm sure, there are some out there, some real creative geniuses that, they have that divine spark that just seems to get shot into them because they're able to tap into the ether. Occasionally, I'll kick out an awesome riff on my guitar, and I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. I wonder where that came from. But, I don't get super disappointed when I don't write an amazing song every day because that ain't gonna happen.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think you can try to find all the answers, but it's really cool just to be able to pick up a guitar and have a cool riff or go to a show. You know, we've been obsessed with going to festivals and seeing live music and live events and comedy. You know, a lot of the things that shaped me was honestly my personality and sense of humor was watching Def Comedy Jam when I was a kid, like watching unedited HBO Def Comedy Jam and seeing that Bernie Mac, you know, those famous, I watched that live as those episodes aired. You can go back in YouTube. Like I was a kid sitting in my basement and my mom would yell, "What the heck are you watching? What the hell are you watching down there? I'm hearing curse words." And I'd have to turn it down to not get caught. And you know, getting into Richard Pryor live from the Sunset Strip. It's a vinyl record that my buddy had in like second grade, and we're listening to Richard Pryor talking about smoking crack. It's like I didn't know what that was.
You don't really know what it means.
No, but we
time.
laughed our ass off at Cheech and Chong. I didn't know what a doobie was, but we watched Cheech and Chong and laughed so hard. So it's an amalgamation of a lot of things that I just probably wasn't old enough to be watching, but I did. It didn't make me a bad person watching Def Comedy Jam and hearing all that vulgar language and seeing Martin Short use the microphone as his wang.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up the same way. I grew up watching like Rodney Dangerfield's Comedy Hour on HBO,
dude,
and,
yes,
and so
yes.
like watching like
Big time.
Sam Kinison and Andrew Dice Clay. It's like I shouldn't have been watching that. I was far too young, but
Right.
I did, and
You're
so
fine.
it probably had some. Well, for the most part, I guess. You know, my show is still juvenile. What the podcast I do is still very juvenile, but I like doing it that way, and I like to, you know, have as many laughs as I can. And if I can make other people laugh, then so be it. That's great too.
Oh, dude, I love it. You're killing it. Love it. Love what you're doing. Keep it up. We got to do this again. We'd love to have you down. Unfortunately, the roads, the weather situation here in Ohio, it's actually been snowing, which is kind of cool. It's not just raining, wet, sloppy rain. So next time we have you on, definitely got to come down to the studio. We'll kick it and hang out and have some laughs. This has been an absolute blast, Mike. Appreciate your time, brother. Let us know where we can find you, how we can connect with you, and we'll put this baby to bed.
Yeah, you can go to obdmpod.com or ourbigdumbmouth.com. We stream live Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Rumble and Twitch. And then again, Saturdays at noon. And we also stream out on that day to the No Agenda stream. So No Agenda is one of our favorite podcasts by Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak. They have their own network over there. So we stream over there. And I'm also co-hosting Doom Scrolling with Sam Tripoli. You just go to Sam's Twitter or YouTube, and we're there. We try to do it on Thursdays whenever Sam's not traveling. And we just talk about weird stuff. Whatever we find on the internet, we play clips of it, and we have a little talk about it, and we move on. It's a very fast show.
That's awesome, dude. Fantastic. Midnight Mike, everybody. Mike, don't go anywhere. I'm going to outro the show. I'm going to come back. We're going to give you a proper goodbye. And, dude, much love. Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go, guys. Midnight Mike, everybody. Go check out the podcast. All his links are in the description. Go check out all the shows and all the streams. Killer stuff. What a fantastic conversation. We appreciate the hell out of each and every one of you. You guys keep sharing this. Write us a review in Spotify and Apple. Make sure you hit that like. Gotta subscribe. Gotta hit that notification bell, baby. We gotta get that YouTube fired up. Please, keep sharing. That really, really does help us. You guys are wonderful. Everybody out there listening, we appreciate the hell out of all you guys. And we're going to put this baby to bed. Love, peace, and chicken grease. We're out. There you go. Bada bing, bada boom.